Alright guys, DSF. This is going to be a video about the First Tycoon book review, The Epic Life of Cornelius Vanderbilt. Jeff Wade, he has a YouTube channel, and I also like his reviews. He did this a week ago. I basically told him it's a great book. It's a long book, but he took the time to do a review, so I'll put that link below, and this will be my review. I also did a blog on stocksnowball.com that's a little bit more in depth than what I'm going to tell you now, so if you would like to go read it, just go to stocksnowball.com, and I can put the link below as well. So let's get into this. The First Tycoon. It is the definitive biography of Cornelius, the Commodore Vanderbilt. T.J. Stiles is the author. It took him 7 years to research, write this biography, and he did an incredible job. He found material that other biographers missed or didn't take the time to research, and he also put to rest to other rumors that were far-fetched by certain authors. And when you go through the book, he'll make some notes on what those were. Basically, guys, Cornelius Vanderbilt, he lived to be 82 years old at a time when most people lived to be 40 to 45. He was born in the George Washington presidency in 1794, and he lived all the way past the Civil War in 1877. And T.J. Stiles in this book does a great job shaping the story around America, the Vanderbilt, the politics at the time, and capitalism. In my blog there, I'm going to talk about, and you can go in there for a lot more in-depth research, but he basically built a dynasty. People think of him, Cornelius, as the railroad tycoon, but he started as a boatman and steamship era, when steamships changed the way people communicated, the way we traveled, and he went against people that had government subsidies, and he won out because he basically gave the customer what they wanted. They gave him travel at cheaper prices, and he changed the gold rush by having an alternative route, and he did all this. And it wasn't even until the last quarter of his life that he even started doing railroads and changing the transportation industry there. So it's so awesome when you get into this book, all the different stuff that Vanderbilt has done. Also, on building his dynasty, he was the first one to actually make a giant corporation when he combined the New York Central and the Hudson River Railroad. And he had the foresight to understand that a corporation could be basically an entity that represents individuals and stuff like that. So like I said, Cornelius Vanderbilt was way before his time. He basically made the modern economy. If you go in there, and in my blog, I go a lot more in detail about his dynasty. Vanderbilt and the crisis, basically different panics that happened during his time. I mean, there was the panic of 63, 69, and 73. So there was 3 major panics in 10 years. And, some people might say, like, that era, there was too many panics and stuff. But the thing was, there was always going to be financial panics when people get a little too crazy. Like in the housing crisis, it's kind of like government led by giving loans to, basically being the backstop to handing out loans to everybody. Well, in the 73 crisis, it was kind of like this with the railroads moving west and everybody thinking that railroads were like the safest investment. They could never go down, and just, the malinvestment of capital going to different railroads that didn't have the right profit risk reward built in. Just because it was a railroad doesn't mean it would be profitable. And most railroads, they learned the hard way through government subsidies. They just took what they could from the government without building. Only James J. Hill, and that's a different story, built the railroad in the future without subsidies. So Vanderbilt understood that, these bubbles, and I go through a few different things. He understood when the Civil War, when the greenback was being printed, and with gold, and he understood just how money flows and where money goes to the strongest holders. And so he takes advantage of these panics by picking up different railroads and assets. And during the Civil War, he donated his best, fastest ship to the North, even though he had to pull the government's teeth, because at first they didn't want to take it as a gift. They wanted to pay him for it. Finally, he talked to Lincoln, gave it to him as a gift. Shouldn't be that hard to give the gift. But then later he donated to the South with Vanderbilt University. So tons of information if you go to the blog or if you want to end up reading this book about all those different topics that I just mentioned, guys. But the four major things that I learned from Vanderbilt was, or from this book, was before Vanderbilt, companies were considered limited, to their value to the underlying assets. So basically, if I had $10,000 in wood, I would have $100 increments, $100 shares equaling that 10,000 of the physical goods of my company. Money was expected only through dividends, not from a rising share price. But Vanderbilt had the foresight to understand that earnings could change, and the worth of the company was just outside just those physical goods. I mean, brands, efficiency, all this kind of stuff that Vanderbilt understood, and it kind of changed the way people, valued companies. That's why you have like 20 times earnings or price to earnings multiples, because it isn't just the underlying earnings that matter, or the underlying assets in a company. Vanderbilt was way ahead of his time. So a few times when Vanderbilt issued bonds and stocks, people thought that he was watering down his stock, but he wasn't, because he knew that his company was worth way more than what the value was being represented in the market. And also, Vanderbilt never took a salary. He only made money when his companies did good through dividends. Second most important point for Vanderbilt is when running his transportation businesses, Vanderbilt didn't care how he got paid. Didn't matter if it was gold, silver, or paper. The only thing that mattered to Vanderbilt was a producing asset. A productive asset will always be able to raise capital. So this was a key point. He wanted the assets that would get the gold, get the silver, get the paper. He didn't really worry about accumulating the silver, gold, and paper, because he knew that would come with the asset. So guys, Vanderbilt understood how the modern economy worked, how issuing bonds and issuing stock at key times to gain advantages and huge wealth. Vanderbilt understood at different times in the market it's better to raise capital, and at other times in the market it's better to pay off debt. And yeah, he did it at the right times, and that's another key thing. And the last one was understanding what is doing best for yourself is doing best for your country. This is a key lesson, guys. Bettering your own situation gives you the opportunities to give to others through success. It allows you to give back with the means that you created. And you should always do what's best for yourself or best for your business to yourself, and because that's the only way you can create more jobs and create better is if you're doing your best and stuff like that. And Vanderbilt made that clear that people, if you don't do it like this, if there's not that basically you could say that visible force that makes people strive to be excellent, it won't be successful. So guys, I give this book a 5 of 5. If you go to my blog, I have my library on there, or not my blog, my website. I have my library. This is now under there. It's rated. And yeah, it definitely would encourage you to check out The First Tycoon. And Cornelius Vanderbilt is an awesome, it's just awesome to study about him and everything that he accomplished in his life at that time period. So thanks for listening.